Welcome everyone to the Lofi Poli Sci podcast. I'm your host, Michael Pickering. That's right, Lo-Fi as in low fidelity, low quality, in your face, messy as can be global news show. Here we're going to talk about our famous question, what's going on in the world today? And it's Thursday, time for that Lo-Fi global news, fresh off that press from the world of NPR. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu may be on his way out. What happens next? So this is it, peeps, or at least almost it. So it seems. The 8-party coalition to oust Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu formally submitted their government to the president. And it appears that sometime next week, the whole of Parliament will meet to take an actual vote to see if this coalition can get the majority in order to actually take their seat as the ruling government. I mean, this is very close to what change can look like in a country. And I won't go into all the different political parties included in the coalition yet, and why it does symbolize a major change in the government of Israel. For that, I'll wait until after the official vote, and just to see where different parties end up in different cabinet picks. But for now, I will say, eyes open, Lo-Fi Nation. The Prime Minister has been in power for 12 years. This is a major shift in Israel. Next up, source, the Americas section of Reuters. Neoliberal or Marxist, polarized Peru faces volatile future either way. And Peru is having presidential elections on Sunday. Oh, so much fun. Oh, not really. No one likes presidential elections. But to be specific, this is a presidential runoff, which means after Sunday, Peru will have a new president. But what in the world does this headline mean for Peru? Choice between neoliberal or Marxist? Well, let's break it down. So neoliberal is a type of economic policy, right? Mostly seen in Western democracies. It embraces things like free trade policies with other countries, no tariffs on imports, the deregulation of industry, less government intervention, and less government subsidies for businesses. It's your standard laissez-faire capitalism, pretty much. Now, Marxism. Well, let's start off by saying that generally speaking, no Western democracy really implements true Marxist economies. It just makes for a good headline. Simple as that. But in the context of how democracies really do use Marxist economic policy, this simply means a government has a more direct role in managing the economy and labor in the country. More regulations, more protections of labor rights, increased subsidies for businesses, potentially tariffs on imported goods in order to protect domestic industries that are still developing in the country. That sort of thing. What the headline implies about the election in Peru is that these two presidential candidates have very, very different views about how the government should intervene in the economy moving forward. In many ways, the Peruvian people, they're voting for what kind of economic policy their country will use. That's pretty big considering what's going on in the world today. We'll let you know more and see how this presidential election turns out. Now, moving forward, because we never move on from anything. Source, AP World. Mafia Hitman apologizes. Italians indignant at his release. This story grabbed our attention for many different reasons, but I'll come back to that in a minute. The short version of the story is that an Italian mafia hitman is being released in Italy after serving 25 years of his life sentence, and this individual also became an informant against the mafia. Now, I'm not going to go into the details of the horrible things this person did. There's quite a few. It's in the story if you really want to know. Check it out. But rather, I want to use this to ask a question or a series of questions to all of you out there. So many Italians right now are not pleased with this former mafia hitman being released. Not at all. And the question to you, does serving time in prison rectify a person's crimes? How long is long enough? How much time is the right amount of time? Life is not black and white, but rather a million shades of a million different colors. I don't know the answer to these questions, or rather, I won't give you an answer. But as I read over this article and these thoughts, I simply wanted to share the question with you and see what you thought about these things. Let me know. And our following story comes from the BBC Latin America section. Nicaragua opposition figure Camaro put under house arrest. This is an update to a previous story about Nicaraguan presidential election news. This November, President Ortega will be running for a 5th term in office. Nicaragua may have the institutions of a democracy, but it is most certainly not. Ortega may have the title of president, but he surely operates like a dictator. When last we talked about potential opposition candidate Ms. Camaro, her office was raided by government officials. Now, she's being put under house arrest and looks to be charged with money laundering. And this is important because remember, as we said last time, anyone under investigation by the government cannot run for president. And wouldn't you know that the prosecutors not only are throwing money laundering charges at her, they are also asking that she not be allowed to run for president. Normally, I'd say something like back away from the speakers or lower your volume for a second, Lo-Fi Nation. Not this time. I'm pretty sure you all know what I would say, so no yelling at people who would never listen to us anyway. We'll simply say that this is super obvious, and President Ortega isn't even trying to hide what he's doing. And that, my friends, is why Nicaragua currently is not a democracy, and why Ortega is currently a dictator. We'll update you with more when we know more. And a last piece of news to send you on your way for the day, the science section of NPR. Why NASA is blasting water bears and bobtail squid into space. And before we start, let's go ahead and say these are microbes and tiny, tiny water creatures. They are not big bears that live near water, nor large squids that will require massive aquariums on the International Space Station. Now you know. The idea behind sending some of our fellow Earthlings into space, though? And yes, they are Earthlings too, because Earthling does not mean a human from Earth. Earthling means a living creature from Earth. Now you know. But the point behind all of this is to further understand the effects of space travel on living organisms. I mean, check out the article for more details. But the overall point, even after over half a century of space flights, scientific experiments, going to the moon, and so much more, we really have only scraped the surface of understanding what space life actually does to the human body. And that's a fact. I mean, think about it. An astronaut being in space for, let's say, 6 months is in no way the same as one being in space for 6 years, 16 years, or 26 years. I mean, you get the point. If we are ever going to get into the vastness of space, we're going to have to spend a whole lot more time in space than we currently allow humans to do. And that's why NASA is sending our water bears and bobtail squid friends to space. And we'll be looking for your findings, sciencey folk. And that's a brief snapshot of what's going on in the world today. Issue 6 of Letters of the Lofi Poli Sci comes out Saturday. Get at me to be added to the emailing list. Do you have top 10 list ideas? Send them on in. Do you have good news to share? Share it with us. Always remember that Lofi Poli Sci is more than just me. It's the we that we be. Peace and well-being to all my human beings out there. Much love and always the best. Pickering, signing off.